Rebecca Thompson freezes while reviewing the hidden camera recording she installed in the music room. For 8 weeks, her 9-year-old daughter Emma cried before each private lesson with the dear teacher, Michael Harrison. The girl always said that everything was fine, but in the images, Rebecca sees something that makes her blood run cold. The professor locks the door down, pulls down the curtains, and what happens in the next 45 minutes will reveal a disturbing secret that was hidden right under everyone's eyes. But to understand how we got here, we need to go back a few weeks, when everything seemed normal and safe. Rebecca Thompson, 38, has always been a devoted mother. After the difficult divorce 3 years ago, she went to great lengths to ensure that Emma had the best life possible. She worked as a nurse at Providence Portland Hospital in the state of Oregon, facing long and tiring shifts, but she always found time and energy for her daughter. She was that kind of mother who was present, who attended school meetings, who knew her daughter's friends by name, who made a point of having dinner together every night. Emma, her only child, was a 9-year-old girl full of life. Long brown hair that she loved to tie back into ponytails, bright green eyes that seemed to dance when she smiled, and an infectious laugh that filled the house with joy. From a young age, Emma showed a love for music. I sang in the shower, drummed on the tables, was mesmerized when I heard melodies on the radio. Rebecca has always dreamed of giving her daughter what she herself never had in childhood: music lessons, an instrument of truth, the chance to develop that natural talent. It was in September, as fall began to paint Portland's trees with golden and orange hues, that Rebecca decided it was time to make that dream come true. He searched for piano teachers in the Laurelhurst area, the quiet neighborhood where they lived, in a rented 2-bedroom house with a small garden in front. Several mothers at Emma's school recommended the same name: Michael Harrison, a respected teacher with more than 15 years of experience who had a private studio in his own home. Rebecca called and scheduled a visit. Michael Harrison was attending at a residential address just a 10-minute drive away on a tree-lined and quiet street. The house was large, 2-story, well-maintained, with an impeccable garden. The man who opened the door was 52 years old, with grey hair slicked back, thin-framed glasses, and a gentle smile that inspired confidence. She wore a brown wool sweater and dress pants, had large and well-groomed hands, clean nails. It seemed exactly what a mother would expect from a dedicated music teacher. "Welcome," he said, in a calm and polite voice, opening the door wider for them to enter. The studio was in a large room on the first floor, with walls covered in framed certificates, diplomas from music conservatories, photographs of him with students in recitals. In the center of the room, a glossy black grand piano reflected the soft light that came in through the window. Emma was delighted at the time. His eyes widened at the sight of the instrument. "Can I touch it, Mom?" he asked with that pure, childlike excitement. Michael smiled and signaled yes. "Make yourself comfortable, Emma. This piano is here for just that." He turned to Rebecca as the girl shyly approached the instrument. "I've been teaching for 17 years. I've explained classical technique, but I also like to let the kids explore. Music needs to be pleasure, not obligation." Rebecca enjoyed the talk. She liked the organized room, the diplomas on the wall, the respectful way he treated Emma. He especially liked the fact that several families in the neighborhood trusted him. They arranged classes twice a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays at 4 in the afternoon, right after Emma left school. The amount was reasonable. It fit Rebecca's tight budget. The first class was on September 12th, a sunny Tuesday. Rebecca took Emma, who was excited, swinging her legs in the back seat of the car the entire way. "What do you think I'll learn first, Mom? Scales? Real songs?" Rebecca smiled in the rearview mirror. "I'm sure Professor Michael will teach you amazing things, dear." The first few weeks went exactly as Rebecca had hoped. Perfect. Emma would come home from class with her eyes shining, practicing scales at the kitchen table with her fingers, humming simple melodies she was learning. "Look, Mum, I managed to play Ode to Joy with both hands," she said proudly, demonstrating on the imaginary keyboard. Rebecca felt her heart warm seeing her daughter so happy. "I was grateful to have found such a dedicated, patient teacher." Michael was always smiling when he opened the door. He always had kind words about Emma's progress. "She has natural talent, Rebecca. She is a diligent, obedient student, learns fast." Those words filled Rebecca with pride. After everything they went through with the divorce, with the changes, seeing Emma happy and developing was all she wanted most. The classes lasted exactly 1 hour. Rebecca would drop Emma off at the door at 4, go shopping or sort out pending things, and come back at 5 to pick it up. The routine has established itself naturally, as these good things in life usually do. In this video, you'll discover how one mother trusted her maternal instinct even when everyone said she was overreacting. You'll see how small signs, which most would ignore, became the key to saving your daughter. Courage and determination can change everything in a matter of hours. Every detail here is based on real events, on choices a mother made when the whole world doubted her. If you've made it this far, it's because real history interests you. Help this content reach more people. Leave the like, subscribe to the channel, and activate the bell. It was in the 5th class, on a grey Tuesday in October, that Rebecca noticed the first change. Small, almost imperceptible, but it was there. Emma was quiet in the car the entire journey to the teacher's house. Usually she talked non-stop, told about school, about her friends, about what she wanted to learn that day. But that afternoon, she just stared out the window, biting her lower lip, playing nervously with the strap of her backpack. "How are you, my love?" Rebecca asked, looking in the rearview mirror. Emma was slow to answer. "Mom, do we need to go today?" The question took Rebecca by surprise. "Of course, dear. You love your classes." Emma didn't answer, just kept looking out the window. When they arrived in front of the teacher's house, the girl took a long time to get out of the car. He opened the door slowly, picked up his backpack with slow movements, and entered the house looking back, as if he wanted his mother to go with him. Rebecca thought it was strange, but thought that perhaps Emma was tired of school. It had been a full week with math and science tests. Children are like this sometimes, he thought, tired, unwilling to do extra activities. She returned exactly 1 hour later, parking in front of the house at 5 o'clock. Michael opened the door with his usual smile, but Rebecca noticed something different about Emma. The girl had red eyes, flushed cheeks. It looked like she had cried. "Emma, what happened?" Rebecca asked, crouching in front of her daughter as she walked out the door. "He was practicing too much and tired his eyes," explained the teacher quickly, still on the threshold. "She's very dedicated, you know. Sometimes I need to remind her to take breaks." He spoke in that calm, polite voice, but there was something about the tone that Rebecca couldn't identify, something that made a small discomfort arise deep in her chest. Emma got into the car quietly. He didn't want to talk about the class. When Rebecca asked what they had done, the girl just said it was cool and stared out the window. That night during dinner, Rebecca tried to strike up a conversation over the piano. "Are you still enjoying the lessons, honey?" Emma stirred the food with her fork. "I am, Mom. Professor Michael is nice." "Only—" The sentence remained in the air, incomplete. "But what?" Rebecca asked, feeling that discomfort grow. "Nothing, never mind," replied Emma, and asked to be excused from the table. Rebecca wanted to believe that it was nothing. He wanted to believe the teacher's explanation, the idea that Emma was just tired. But something in her chest tightened that night. Something small, almost imperceptible, like a tiny stone in a shoe that bothers you with every step. She tried to ignore it. She tried to convince herself that she was being silly, too worried, exaggerated as mothers usually are. But the discomfort wouldn't go away. The following Thursday, the pattern repeated itself. Emma was quiet in the car. It took him a while to leave when they arrived. He entered the teacher's house with slow steps. When Rebecca returned to fetch it, the girl was again with red eyes, hugging her own backpack against her chest. "How was it today?" Rebecca asked, trying to sound casual. "It was good," replied Emma in a low voice, and said nothing more all the way back. That night, Rebecca couldn't sleep properly. She stayed up late, staring at the ceiling of her room, listening to the nocturnal sounds of the house, the wind in the trees outside, the occasional creak of wood, Emma's quiet breathing in the next room. She thought about that look of her daughter, in red eyes, in the way she had spoken. It was good, it wasn't great, it wasn't fun, it wasn't amazing like it used to be. It was just good, said in an emotionless voice. Am I seeing things that don't exist, Rebecca thought. Am I being paranoid? Mothers do that. Mothers worry too much. They see dangers where there are none. Professor Michael was respected. There were diplomas on the wall. Other families trusted him. Emma herself had loved the first classes. Why did Rebecca suddenly have that bad feeling in her stomach? If this revelation is arousing in you a deep curiosity about what really happened, comment. Right now, I want more stories, and please leave your like on this video. The following weeks created a pattern that Rebecca could no longer ignore. Every Tuesday and Thursday, the same thing. Emma began to make excuses for not going to class. On Monday night, it was already beginning. "Mom, I have a stomachache. I don't think I'll be able to go to class tomorrow." Rebecca took her temperature. There was no fever. He felt his daughter's belly. There was no stiffness. "Do you need to go to the bathroom?" "No, Mom, it's just a pain. But I think I'll get better if I stay at home." The following Thursday it was a headache, then extreme tiredness, then sudden desire to give up the piano. "Mom," I was thinking, "maybe piano isn't for me. Maybe I should try something else." Rebecca talked fondly, thinking it was normal child's laziness, that phase when the new becomes routine and the excitement decreases. "Honey, you were so happy with the lessons. Remember how you wanted to learn. Let's continue a little longer, okay?" Emma always gave in, but she was never happy about it. He got in the car with a frown. During the journey, he was silent, and always came back different, silent, hugging her own body in the back seat, as if trying to protect herself from something invisible. Rebecca began to ask more direct questions. "Do you like Professor Michael?" "He's cool, Mom." "Does he treat you well?" "It does." "Does anything bother you in class?" The girl hesitated before answering. "No, Mom, it's okay." But all was not well. Rebecca saw it in her daughter's eyes. I saw it in the way Emma cringed when they talked about classes. I saw it in the way the girl who was once so cheerful and talkative was becoming quiet and closed. One day, during the drive to the teacher's house, Rebecca tried a different approach. "Emma, if anything is bothering you, you can tell me, okay? Anything. I will always believe in you, always." Emma looked at her mother with those huge green eyes, and for a moment it seemed as if she was going to say something important. Her lips parted. Her breathing became faster. "Mom, But then she stopped, shook her head and looked down. "It's nothing, Mommy. It's okay." Rebecca felt a deep frustration grow in her chest. She felt that she was missing something important, that there was a door closing between her and her daughter. At night, Emma began to have nightmares. Rebecca woke up to her daughter's screams at 2 or 3 in the morning. He would run into the bedroom and find Emma sitting on the bed, sweaty, shivering, eyes wide in the dark. "What was my love? What did you dream?" "Just a bad dream, Mom." "About what?" "I don't remember," but Rebecca saw that she remembered. I saw it in the way Emma held his hand too tightly, squeezing her fingers until it hurt. I saw it in the way the girl looked at the bedroom door with fear, as if waiting for someone to come in. "Do you want to sleep with me today?" offered Rebecca, and Emma always accepted. Mother and daughter lay together on the double bed, Emma huddled against her mother's body, and Rebecca lay awake for hours, stroking her daughter's hair, feeling her heart beat fast against her ribs. What kind of nightmare does a 9-year-old have that causes so much fear? What was going on in your daughter's life that she couldn't see? During the day, Emma was different too. Quieter at school, according to teacher Ms. Martinez in a call Rebecca received one Thursday afternoon at work. Mrs. Thompson, I wanted to talk to you about Emma. Rebecca felt her stomach turn. Is she okay? Are the grades good? The notes are normal, but she's been very quiet lately. He no longer participates in the activities as before. She's alone in the playground. When I ask if everything is okay, she just says that she is tired. Rebecca thanked her for the call and sat in the hospital break room for long minutes, staring at the phone in her hand. Emma was changing before his eyes. The cheerful, chatty girl was turning into someone closed off and scared, and Rebecca was sure, absolutely sure, deep in her soul, that it had to do with those damn piano lessons. But how? Why? The teacher was so respected, so kind, so professional. If you're here so far, it's because this story is stirring you. What follows will show the exact moment when everything changed. Therefore, at the end of this video, we will reveal the complete outcome with details that few know. Stay with me until the end. Rebecca decided she needed to investigate. I could no longer ignore that insistent voice inside my head, that maternal instinct that screamed that something was wrong. She started by asking questions to other mothers, discreetly, casually, after leaving school, during quick conversations in the parking lot. Your daughter takes lessons with Professor Michael Harrison too, doesn't she? How is she enjoying it? Jennifer, mother of 11-year-old Sophie, smiled enthusiastically. Ah, Michael is wonderful. Sophie loves his classes. She has progressed so much in recent months. Rebecca tried to probe more. And Sophie never complained about anything. Something that bothers you? Jennifer looked confused. No, never. Why? Are you having any problems? Rebecca quickly backed off. No, just curiosity. Emma sometimes gets tired, but it must be from school. He tried with Sandra, mother of 2 of the professor's students. His studio is impeccable, always very professional. My girls have been taking classes for 2 years, and I have never had anything to complain about. He's demanding, yes, but that's how you really learn, isn't it? Children need discipline. Rebecca forced a smile and agreed, but inside she felt that growing isolation. Maybe I was really exaggerating. Maybe it was just her seeing problems where there were none. The following Tuesday, Rebecca tried a different approach. When she left Emma at the door of the teacher's house, she said she would wait. I'll stay here in the living room reading while Emma has the class, okay? Professor Michael's smile remained on his face, but Rebecca noticed something in his eyes. A quick flash of something cold, something that wasn't there before. It went by so fast that she almost thought she had imagined it. I'd rather the parents didn't stay, Rebecca, he said, in a voice that was still gentle but firmer. Children concentrate better without distraction from parents around. It's a studio policy, you know. I've found over the years that it works best this way. Rebecca looked at Emma, who was standing next to the teacher with her head down. But Michael politely interrupted. Other mothers can confirm. That's how I work. It is part of the teaching methodology. Create a space where the child feels free to make mistakes and learn without the pressure of the parent's gaze. Rebecca didn't know what to say. That made sense. It made sense, didn't it? Teachers have methodologies. They have ways of working. And other mothers confirmed this. But why then did she feel that discomfort increasing? Okay, she said finally, and left. Emma looked at her with an expression that Rebecca couldn't decipher. Fear, relief, sadness. The door closed before she could be sure. Rebecca left by car but did not leave. He went around the block and parked on the back street, from where he could see the side of the teacher's house. She sat there, hands clenching the steering wheel, heart beating too fast. She felt ridiculous. She felt like one of those paranoid mothers who sees danger in everything. But I couldn't leave. She couldn't just leave her daughter there and go shopping like she always did. From the position where I was, I could see the studio window, but the curtains were drawn, thick, heavy curtains, which did not allow you to see anything inside. Rebecca had never noticed this before, but now she did. I saw that those curtains were always closed during all classes. Why did a teacher need such thick curtains in a music room? Why did you need so much secrecy? She stood there for 40 minutes, feeling more and more foolish and at the same time more and more restless. He saw nothing. He heard nothing. The house remained silent, with only those closed curtains staring back at it, like eyes that refused to show what they are hiding. When there were 15 minutes left before the end of class, Rebecca started the car and returned to the front of the house, arriving exactly as she always did. The teacher opened the door with the same gentle smile. Emma left quietly, backpack tight to her chest. On the way home, Rebecca tried to talk. "How was the class today? It was good. What did you practice? Scales. Emma, look at me." The girl raised her eyes, too green and bright, as if she were holding back tears. "If anything is wrong, you can tell me." "I know, Mom. But that's okay." And that was a lie. Rebecca knew it was a lie. That night, after Emma had fallen asleep, Rebecca sat at the kitchen table with a cup of tea cooling in her hands. The house was silent, only the low hum of the refrigerator and the ticking of the clock on the wall. She thought of everything, in Emma's red eyes, in nightmares, in the change of behavior, in the teacher's refusal to let her stay during classes, in the always closed curtains. Each separate piece seemed small, perhaps explainable, but together they formed an image that left Rebecca with a tight lump in her throat. The phone rang, ripping her out of her thoughts. It was her older sister, Karen, calling from Seattle. "Are you okay?" "She looks tired. I'm alone, worried about Emma." Rebecca told her about the classes, about the changes, about that bad feeling that she couldn't explain. Karen listened in silence, and then said what Rebecca already expected to hear. "Do you think you're not exaggerating? I mean, the man has been respected for years. Other families trust him. Maybe Emma is just going through a phase." Rebecca hung up the phone, feeling even more alone. Even her own sister thought she was being paranoid. Maybe it really was. Maybe I needed to relax, trust more, stop seeing ghosts where they didn't exist. But then why couldn't I sleep? Why didn't that tightness in my chest go away? If this story is already changing the way you see maternal protection, like, subscribe and activate the bell in this video so that this message reaches other mothers. The days dragged on with that constant tension. Emma kept having nightmares. She kept coming back from classes more and more closed. Rebecca kept waking up in the middle of the night, listening to her daughter's breathing in the next room, feeling that anguish grow like a poisonous plant inside her chest. At school, Emma was increasingly isolated. The teacher called again, more worried this time. "She's not eating right at lunch. He just keeps messing with the food. When I ask, he says he's not hungry." Rebecca made an appointment with the family's pediatrician, Dr. Morrison. The doctor examined Emma carefully, asked questions, listened to her lungs, checked her throat. "Physically, everything is normal, Rebecca. Maybe it's stress. Children feel stress too, especially with school pressure." Rebecca mentioned piano lessons, the change in behavior. The doctor suggested therapy. Sometimes talking to a professional helps children express their feelings. But Emma turned down the idea of therapy. "I don't want to go, Mom. I don't need to. It's okay with me." And Rebecca didn't want to force it. She didn't want to push her daughter into something that would make her even more uncomfortable. Instead, he decided to keep watching, keep paying attention, to continue trusting that instinct that refused to silence. It was on a Thursday, 3 weeks after that first change in behavior, that everything became definitively clear to Rebecca. She had finished her shift at the hospital early and decided to arrive early to pick up Emma. It was 4:50 when she parked in front of the teacher's house. Class ended at 5. Rebecca stayed in the car, waiting. The front door was closed. The windows with those thick curtains didn't let you see anything. But then, in an impulse she couldn't control, Rebecca got out of the car and approached the house. He walked slowly down the cobblestone path to the door. He stopped there, breath bated. And then he put his ear to the dark wood of the door. For a few seconds, he only heard silence, then muffled voices. Professor Michael's voice, low but clear enough for Rebecca to understand the words that changed everything. "That stays between us, Emma. You know that. If you tell your mother, she won't believe it. No one believes children when adults say otherwise. And I am a respected teacher. Your mother trusts me. Everyone trusts." Rebecca's heart stopped for a second before racing at a violent pace. Blood rose to his face. His hands became cold. She felt a rage simmering inside her, a protective, fierce rage that only mothers know. Without thinking, without planning, he knocked on the door hard. 3 loud, urgent knocks. "Emma, Emma, come here now." There was silence on the other side. Then, movement sounds. Steps. The door took almost a full minute to open, a minute that for Rebecca seemed like an eternity. When it finally opened, Professor Michael was on the threshold with that polite smile, but there was something different in his eyes, something Rebecca recognized immediately. Guilt. Fear disguised as surprise. "Rebecca, you arrived early today. Where is my daughter?" Rebecca's voice came out louder than she intended. "Emma!" The girl appeared behind the teacher, backpack already on her back, looking at the ground. She was pale. His hands trembled slightly. "We finished early today," the teacher said in that calm voice, but Rebecca saw the tense muscle in his jaw, saw the way he was positioned in the doorway, as if he wanted to block her view into the house. "Come here, Emma. Now." Emma moved quickly, past the teacher, and running into her mother's arms. Rebecca held her tightly, feeling her daughter's small body tremble against hers. He looked at the teacher over Emma's head. He was still smiling, but it was a different smile now. Tense. Forced. "See you next week, then," he said, as if nothing was wrong. Rebecca did not respond. He just took Emma by the hand and walked quickly back to the car. He put his daughter in the back seat, closed the door, got in the front. His hands were shaking so much that he had difficulty putting the key in the ignition. When he finally managed to start the car and started driving, he looked in the rearview mirror. Emma was huddled in the seat, hugging her own backpack, silent tears streaming down her face. Rebecca didn't go straight home. She drove to a nearby park, parked under a large tree, and turned on the bench to look at her daughter. "Emma, look at me." The girl raised her green eyes full of tears. "What does he do to you in those classes?" Emma began to cry louder, sobs shaking her small body. He... I couldn't speak. Rebecca got out of the car, opened the back door, and sat next to her daughter. He pulled Emma into his lap as he did when she was younger, rocking, caressing her brown hair. "Everything is fine now. You're safe. You can tell me. I will always believe in you. Always." And then, gradually, between sobs and broken sentences, Emma began to speak. "It started small, Mom. In the first classes it was cool. But then he started to get angry when I made a mistake. He yelled at me. He said I was stupid, that I didn't pay attention. It made me stand touching until my back hurt. When I cried, he would say that this is how real teachers teach, that I needed to be strong, that he was special and that's why he was harder on me. And I always said not to tell you. He said that you would think it was a lie, that everyone would think." Rebecca felt hot tears streaming down her face as she listened. The anger inside her grew with each word, but she kept her voice calm and firm so as not to scare Emma. "Did he ever touch you in a way that made you uncomfortable?" Emma shook her head. "Not like that, Mom, but he gets very close sometimes. Hold my shoulders tightly when you're angry. He once pushed me on the piano bench because I wasn't sitting up straight." Rebecca's stomach turned. Emotional abuse, psychological abuse, a grown man using his position of power to terrorize a 9-year-old child, and she had let it happen. She had left Emma in the hands of this man week after week because she didn't trust her own instinct, because she heard the other mothers saying that everything was normal, because I was afraid of being seen as paranoid. "You'll never have class with him again," Rebecca said in a firm voice. "Never again. And I'm going to make sure that other children don't have to go through this either." Emma looked at her mother with those hopeful eyes. "Do you believe me, Mom?" Rebecca held her daughter's face with both hands. "I have always believed in you, my love. From the beginning, I knew something was wrong, and I'll never let anyone hurt you again." That night, after putting Emma to sleep, after staying by her side until she was sure she was in a deep sleep, Rebecca went downstairs to the living room. He sat on the couch with his laptop on his lap and began to research emotional abuse in children, warning signs, how to report, how to protect. He spent hours reading, taking notes, planning. It was past midnight when she finally closed the computer, but Rebecca knew what she needed to do. I couldn't just take Emma out of class and leave. How many other children were going through the same thing? How many other girls and boys were being terrorized by that man who hid behind diplomas and reputation? Rebecca needed proof. I needed something concrete that would make people believe. Because he knew, painfully knew, that the word of a 9-year-old against a respected 52-year-old teacher would not be enough. It was then that she came up with the idea for the camera. If I could record what happened in those classes, I would have undeniable proof. No one could doubt it. No one could say that it was exaggeration or imagination. The next morning, as soon as Emma left for school, Rebecca went to an electronics store in downtown Portland. "I need a small camera that will record for at least an hour," she told the seller. "The smaller, the better." The seller showed several options. Rebecca chose a micro camera the size of a button, which could be easily hidden and recorded in high definition for up to 4 hours. It was expensive. It cost almost $200 that she didn't have to spare, but she didn't hesitate. He paid on his credit card and left the store with the camera in his bag and a shot in his head. He spent the afternoon testing. The camera was activated by a discrete button and started recording immediately. The video and audio quality was surprisingly good for something so small. Rebecca practiced several times, turning it on, turning it off, transferring the files to the computer. When Emma came home from school, Rebecca already knew exactly what she was going to do. That night, after dinner, Rebecca sat with Emma on the couch. "My love, I need to talk to you about something important." Emma looked at her mother, with those eyes still swollen from crying so much in the last few days. "You still have one more class with Professor Michael, just one more." Emma began to protest, immediate panic creeping up her face. "No, Mom. Please. You said I'd never have to go again." Rebecca held her daughter's hands. I know, but I need you to trust me. I'm going to put a hidden camera in your backpack. She will record everything that happens in class. And then we're going to use that to make sure that he never does that to any kids again. Can you be brave for me just one more time?" Emma was shaking, but after a long moment she nodded. "Will you be out there?" "I'll be there close, I promise. And if you need me, just shout. I'm going to run in." The following Tuesday, Rebecca woke up with an upset stomach. She dressed Emma carefully, prepared a breakfast that neither of them could eat properly. At 3:30 p.m., before they left the house, Rebecca sewed the camera to the inside strap of Emma's backpack, carefully positioning it so that it was pointed outward. He turned on the device, confirmed that he was recording. She looked at her daughter, who was pale but determined. "You're the bravest girl I know," Rebecca said, hugging Emma tightly. "Just one more hour, just one more." The journey to the teacher's house was silent. Rebecca felt her hands sweat on the steering wheel. Her heart was beating so hard that she could hear the beating in her own ears. When they arrived in front of the house, she turned to Emma. "You leave your backpack near where you sit at the piano, okay? Very close, so the camera can see and hear everything." Emma agreed. Rebecca saw her daughter get out of the car, saw her walk to the door with slow steps. Professor Michael opened with his usual smile. "Hi, Emma," punctual as always. He looked at Rebecca, waving from the car, and waved back. Rebecca forced a smile, took one last look at Emma and left, but it didn't go away. He went around the block and parked on the back street, from where he could see the side of the house. He turned off the engine and stood there waiting. The next 60 minutes would be the longest of his life. I looked at the clock on the dashboard every 2 minutes. 4 and 5, 4 and 10, 4:15. Every minute seemed to last an eternity. I thought of Emma inside. I thought about what was happening. She thought about every time she had left her daughter in that house without knowing what was really going on behind those closed curtains. The guilt was a physical weight on his chest, crushing his lungs, making it difficult to breathe. A mother should protect. A mother should know. And Rebecca had failed for weeks, but not anymore. Not today. Today she was going to have the tests. Today she was going to do something. Her hands were sweating, her stomach was turning, her mouth was dry. I thought the worst. I prayed to be wrong, but deep down, in the deepest part of her maternal instinct, she knew she wasn't. He knew that what the camera was going to capture would confirm all his fears. 4:30, 4:40, 4:50. With each passing minute, Rebecca's anxiety increased. What if something went wrong? What if he discovered the camera? What if Emma needed her and she was standing there, helpless, waiting? She even put her hand on the ignition key 3 times, ready to start the car and run there, break down the door if necessary. But he held back. The plan needed to work. I needed to let the camera record everything. 5 hours. Rebecca started the car and went back to the front of the house. He parked, turned off the engine, waited. 2 minutes later, the door opened. Emma quickly left, practically running to the car. He got into the back seat and closed the door tightly. Rebecca saw that she was even paler than usual, her hands visibly shaking. "It's okay, my love. It's over. You were so brave. Let's go home now. Nothing in this story happened by chance. What you are discovering here may be the missing piece to understand everything. Stay until the end, as the most surprising moment is yet to come." The journey back home was tense. Emma didn't say a word, just stared out the window with empty eyes. Rebecca drove faster than usual, eager to get there, eager to see what was on that recording. When they finally parked in the driveway, Rebecca turned to her daughter. "You did very well today. Very well. Now let's see what we got." They entered together. Rebecca guided Emma to the sofa. "Do you want to watch it with me, or would you rather go to the room?" Emma hesitated. "I think I want to see it, Mom. I want to see you believing in me." Rebecca's heart broke a little more at those words. She sat next to her daughter, took her backpack, carefully removed the camera from the strap. His hands were shaking so much that it took him a while to connect the device to the laptop. The screen loaded. The video appeared. Rebecca pressed play and turned up the volume. The first images were shaky, showing the inside of the backpack, then the inside of the car as they went to class. Then the image stabilized when Emma entered the house. The audio captured the teacher's voice. "Hi, Emma," punctual as always. The door closing. Steps. Emma placing her backpack near the piano, as Rebecca had instructed. The first 5 minutes seemed normal. Emma sat on the bench, the teacher standing next to her. "Let's start with the scales. Show me C major." Emma began to play, small fingers pressing the keys, and then it began. "Faster," barred the teacher. "You're playing like a lazy child." His voice, which had always been so calm and polite to Rebecca, was completely different now. Hard, cold, cruel. Rebecca felt her jaw clench as she watched. Emma was trying to play faster, her fingers stumbling. "Pathetic," said the professor. "Completely pathetic. How do you expect to be a real pianist playing like that?" Emma began to cry softly. The teacher approached, standing right behind her, so close that it invaded her personal space completely. "Stop crying. Real pianists don't cry. They are strong, dedicated. Do you want to be special, or do you want to be mediocre like everyone else?" His hand appeared in the frame, squeezing Emma's shoulder tightly. The girl shrank. "Sit straight." He pushed her, forcing her back to stand erect at an uncomfortable angle. "Like this. And keep it." If you slacken, let's start over from the beginning." Emma held the position, tears streaming silently, fingers still trying to play the scales. His shoulders trembled with the effort to maintain the posture he demanded. "Please, teacher, my shoulders are hurting," Emma's small voice in the video. "Pain is part of learning. Do you think the great masters got where they got without suffering? Besides, I only do it because you are special. The other children would not receive this attention, but you have potential. And I need to be tough to get that out of you." Rebecca paused the video. "I couldn't see anymore." He ran to the bathroom and vomited, his stomach churning violently. He rested his hands on the sink, looked at his own reflection in the mirror, pale face, red eyes, expression of absolute horror. When she returned to the living room, Emma was sitting on the sofa, hugging a pillow, looking at the floor. Rebecca sat down next to her and pulled her into a tight embrace. "You don't have to go through that anymore. Never again. And I'm going to make him pay for what he did." Emma cried on her mother's shoulder, and Rebecca cried together, holding her daughter as if she could absorb all the pain she had felt. But there was more to the video. Rebecca needed to see it all. He needed to know exactly what had happened in order to act. That night, after putting Emma to sleep again, after staying by her side until she was absolutely sure she was resting, Rebecca returned to the living room. She sat alone on the couch with her laptop, took a deep breath, and pressed play again. He watched the full 45 minutes. Every second was like a stab in the heart, but it didn't stop. I couldn't stop. He saw the teacher yell at Emma repeatedly. She saw him make the girl stand up, touching until her legs trembled with fatigue. She saw him touch her shoulders, her arms, always in a way that could be justified as posture correction. But there was something in the way he did it. Something inappropriate. Something wrong. She saw him say several times that it was their secret, that Emma was special, that no one would understand if she told, that this was how real teachers taught. It was abuse, clear and unambiguous, emotional abuse, psychological abuse, and it was probably happening to other kids as well. Rebecca saved the video in 3 different places: laptop, flash drive, cloud. I wasn't going to risk losing that race. He looked at his watch. 15 in the morning, too late to call anyone, but first thing the next morning she went to the police. It was going to expose Michael Harrison for what he really was, and it was going to protect other families from going through what Emma went through. Rebecca didn't sleep that night. She sat on the bed with her laptop on her lap, watching and re-watching excerpts from the video, making detailed notes of each disturbing moment, every scream, every humiliation, every inappropriate touch disguised as posture correction. The anger she felt was unlike anything she had ever experienced. It was a maternal, visceral anger that burned in the chest and called for action. At 3 in the morning, he finally closed the computer and went to bed, but he kept his eyes open, staring at the ceiling, planning exactly what he would do as soon as the sun came up. By 7 o'clock, Rebecca was already up. She showered, dressed carefully, choosing professional clothes that would make her look trustworthy and serious. Black dress pants, white blouse, grey blazer. He tied his hair in a discreet bun. He looked in the mirror and saw a determined woman looking back. A mother who would no longer doubt herself. A mother who was going to fight. Emma woke up at 7:30. She went down to the kitchen in her pajamas, her hair messy, her eyes still swollen. "Mum, I don't need to go to school today, do I?" Rebecca crouched in front of her daughter, held her small hands. "You don't have to, my love. Today you will stay with Grandma, and I'm going to solve something very important." Emma looked at her mother with those green eyes full of hope mixed with fear. "Are you going to talk to the police?" "Yes, I will. And I'm going to show them the video, and Professor Michael will have to answer for what he did." At 8 o'clock, Rebecca left Emma at her mother's house, who lived 15 minutes away. He did not give many details. He just said that he needed to solve an urgent situation. Rebecca's mother, a 64-year-old woman named Margaret, saw the determination on her daughter's face and asked no questions. He just hugged Emma affectionately and waved to Rebecca. "You can go, dear. We stay right here." Rebecca drove straight to the Portland East Precinct Police Station on Southeast 106th Avenue. He parked the car, took the laptop and the flash drive with the video, took 3 deep breaths to calm his nerves, and got in. The reception was cold and impersonal, with light grey walls and blue plastic chairs lined up against the wall. A young police officer in a navy blue uniform stood behind the counter. "Good morning, how can I help?" she asked in a professional but not impolite voice. Rebecca held the strap of her bag tightly. "I need to report a case of child abuse. I have video evidence." The police officer completely changed her stance. His face became serious, attentive. "Let me call someone from the Child Crime Division. Please sit down. It won't be long." Rebecca sat in one of those uncomfortable chairs, her hands sweating, her heart beating fast. I looked at the people who entered and left the police station. A man paying a fine. A woman making a police report about a stolen car. Normal lives going on while hers had been turned upside down. 10 minutes later, a detective appeared. She was a woman in her mid-40s, with short black hair, shrewd brown eyes, wearing a dark blazer and trousers. He had a serious but gentle expression. "Mrs. Thompson? I'm Detective Ramirez. Please come with me." Rebecca followed the detective down a hallway with a worn linoleum floor to a small interrogation room. Metal table, 4 chairs, recorder in the corner, camera on the ceiling. The detective indicated a chair and sat on the other side of the table. "Tell me what happened." Rebecca started from the beginning. He talked about piano lessons, about how Emma had changed, about the signs she had noticed week after week, about the persistent feeling that something was wrong even when everyone said it was overreacting. He talked about what he had heard through the door, about the decision to put the hidden camera, and then, with hands shaking slightly, he plugged the pen drive into the laptop the detective had brought and showed the video. Detective Ramirez watched in silence. Her face remained professional and neutral, but Rebecca saw the muscles in her jaw tense. He saw the way she closed her hand into a fist on the table. When the video ended, the detective looked at Rebecca. "Did you make a backup?" "I did. 3 copies in different places." "Great. I will need you to leave the pen drive with us as evidence, and I'm going to need a detailed, formal statement." Rebecca agreed. "I do whatever is necessary." Another detective entered the room. Detective Chen, a younger Asian woman, perhaps in her early 30s, with an equally serious expression. The 2 detectives talked briefly in a low voice in the corner of the room. Then Detective Ramirez turned to Rebecca. "Ms. Thompson, based on what we have seen, we will request an immediate warrant for the arrest of Michael Harrison. We will also need your daughter to be examined by a child abuse specialist and to testify when she is ready." Rebecca felt such relief that she almost cried. "She will cooperate, and I'll be with her all the time." The process was long. Rebecca spent the next 3 hours at the police station, giving a 6-page formal statement, answering questions, providing all the details she could remember. Names of other families who had children taking classes with the teacher, exact address, class schedules, everything that could help in the investigation. When he finally left the police station, it was already past noon. The sun was high in a cloudless sky, but Rebecca barely noticed. His head was full of thoughts, worries, hopes. He returned to his mother's house. Emma was in the living room watching cartoons, wrapped in a blanket on the couch. When he saw Rebecca enter, his eyes lit up with a silent question. Rebecca sat next to her and pulled her into a hug. "I did what I needed to do, my love. I showed the video to the police. They will arrest Professor Michael." Emma clung to her mother. "Really? Really? He will no longer hurt you or any other child." Margaret, the grandmother, brought tea for both of them. She sat in an armchair in front of her and looked at her daughter. "What did he do, Rebecca?" Rebecca looked at Emma, who nodded her head with permission. "Emotional and psychological abuse. He yelled at her, humiliated her, made her hold painful positions, touched her inappropriately disguised as posture correction. And he told her not to tell because no one would believe her. Margaret put her hand to her mouth in horror. Oh my God, that man so respected. That teacher that everyone recommended. Exactly, Rebecca said in a bitter voice. He used reputation as a shield. He made everyone believe that he was reliable, dedicated, professional, and behind that mask, he terrified children. Margaret looked at her granddaughter with tears in her eyes. Emma, my dear, I'm sorry. If I knew... Emma shook her head. It wasn't your fault, Grandma. He was good at hiding. Rebecca spent the rest of that day with Emma. He did not return home. She stayed at her mother's house, where she felt safer, less alone. In the afternoon, he received a call from Detective Ramirez. The judge approved the warrant. We are going to run it today at 17 o'clock. I'll keep you posted. Rebecca thanked her and hung up. He looked at his watch. 3:30. In an hour and a half, Michael Harrison would be arrested. Time seemed to drag and fly at the same time. Rebecca couldn't concentrate on anything. He tried to read a magazine, gave up after 3 sentences. He tried to watch TV with Emma. He didn't absorb anything that was on the screen. He kept walking around the house, looking at the phone every 2 minutes, waiting for the call that would confirm that he had been arrested. 4 hours, 4:30, 5 hours. The phone rang. Ms. Thompson, Detective Ramirez. Michael Harrison is in custody. He was arrested without incident at 17:10. Rebecca felt her legs weaken with relief. Thank you, Detective, thank you very much. There's one more thing, Mrs. Thompson. When we executed the search warrant at his residence, we found something. Rebecca's heart sank. What? Videos. Lots of videos. Files hidden on his computer. Recordings of other classes with other children. We are still analyzing, but we have counted at least 12 different victims over the last 8 years. Rebecca had to sit down. 12 children. 12 families who had trusted that man. 12 girls and boys who had gone through what Emma went through. Maybe for longer, perhaps worse things Emma had experienced. The detective continued. We will contact all families. It will be difficult for them. Some did not even suspect it, but thanks to you, Mrs. Thompson, this man will no longer have access to any children. You saved your daughter, and it probably saved future victims as well. When Rebecca hung up the phone, she sat in silence for a long moment. Emma was on her grandmother's lap, the two talking softly. Margaret looked at her daughter. Was it him? Rebecca nodded yes. He was arrested, and found evidence that there were other children, many others. Margaret closed her eyes, pressing Emma against her. How terrible! That monster. That night, Rebecca, Emma, and Margaret dined together. A simple meal, roast chicken with potatoes, salad, homemade bread. They didn't say much about what had happened. They talked about normal things, about time, about the plans for the weekend, about which movie to watch after dinner. It was an attempt to return to normality, even if none of the three knew yet what this new normality would be like. In the following days, the news spread quickly through the community of Laurelhurst. Respected teacher arrested for child abuse. 12 victims over 8 years. Rebecca started receiving calls. Some of the other mothers she had questioned weeks ago. Jennifer, Sophie's mother, called crying. Rebecca, I didn't believe you. When you asked if there was a problem, I said everything was great. I was so blind. My Sophie was going through the same thing that Emma and I didn't see. Rebecca tried to console her. He was good at hiding it, Jennifer. He manipulated everyone. He used his reputation, his diplomas, his career time. We trusted him because he seemed trustworthy. But Jennifer was not comforted. I should have realized. I'm a mother. I should have seen the signs. Sophie was changing too, and I thought it was just adolescence coming. What kind of mother am I? This conversation was repeated several times in the following days. Sandra called, Karen, another mother, Michelle, Emily, all with the same crushing guilt, all with the same question. How did I not understand? And Rebecca said the same thing to everyone, because he was an experienced predator, because he knew exactly how to manipulate children and deceive adults, because we all want to believe that people in positions of authority are good and trustworthy. But it's not our fault. It's his. Only his. Families organized themselves. 10 of the 12 families identified decided to form a support group. They met once a week in the homes of different families, while the children saw professionals specialized in childhood trauma. Rebecca went to one of these meetings. She sat in a room full of other mothers, some fathers too, all with similar expressions of horror, guilt, anger and determination to help their children recover. Jennifer spoke first. Sophie was 11 years old when she started school. I thought it would be good for her, a creative activity. In the first few months, everything was fine. Then she started to get anxious. He made excuses not to go. I forced it, thinking it was laziness. My God, I forced my daughter to continue being abused. She began to cry. Another mother, Sandra, put her hand on her shoulder. We all did that. We all pushed it because we thought we knew what was best. Each mother shared her story, the signs they had ignored, the excuses they had believed, the trust they had placed in a man who did not deserve it. And each story was a mirror of Rebecca's experience, changes in behavior, red eyes, nightmares, social seclusion, fear disguised as tiredness. How had they all missed? How had this man managed to fool so many people for so long? Michelle, mother of 2 girls who took lessons with Michael Harrison, had a theory. He chose children from busy families, mothers who work hard, fathers who are absent, single-parent families, children who perhaps did not have so much constant supervision. And he used the fact that he was an older, respected man with degrees and years of experience. Who suspects the kind 52-year-old teacher with certificates on the wall? Rebecca thought about it. It was true. She was a single mother working long shifts at the hospital. Emma was home alone more than Rebecca would have liked. And Michael Harrison had seemed like the perfect answer. A dedicated teacher who would take care of his daughter's musical education while Rebecca worked to pay the bills. How could she have been so naive? But Detective Ramirez, who came to speak to the support group at one of the meetings, had a different perspective. You weren't naive, she said, looking at every mother in the room. You were the victims of a calculating predator. Michael Harrison has spent years building an impeccable reputation specifically for having access to vulnerable children. That's the standard. Predators don't look like monsters. They seem like trustworthy, dear, respected people. That's how they get access. The detective also brought news about the case. Michael Harrison was in preventive detention without the right to bail. The prosecution was building a strong case based on the videos found, the children's testimonies and the evidence collected. He would probably go to trial in 6 to 8 months. He faced multiple accusations of child abuse, emotional abuse, inappropriate conduct with minors. If convicted in all of them, he could face up to 25 years in prison. 25 years! Rebecca thought about it. It was a lot. It was justice. But it did not erase what had happened. It did not heal the trauma of Emma and the other 12 children. He did not return the stolen innocence. Justice was important, necessary, but it was only the beginning. The real journey would be recovery. Emma began therapy with a child psychologist who specializes in trauma, Dr. Lisa Henderson. A gentle woman in her 40s, with red hair and a soft voice, who had a warmly decorated office with comfortable armchairs and discreet toys in the corners. Rebecca took Emma twice a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays, ironically on the same days that were previously piano lessons. At first, Emma didn't talk much in the sessions. She kept quiet, playing with a Rubik's Cube that Dr. Henderson had on the table. But gradually, as the weeks passed, it began to open up. He began to talk about the fear he had felt, about how the teacher made her feel small and dumb, about how she had believed her when he said that no one would believe her if she told. about the nightmares I still had sometimes, waking up thinking I needed to go to another class. Rebecca participated in some sessions. She sat next to her daughter and listened to things that broke her heart. Emma talking about how she had tried to tell in a roundabout way, hoping that her mother would understand without her having to say the words. How he had left clues, how I had hoped to be saved. And Rebecca cried, hugged her daughter, apologized for having taken so long to understand. But Dr. Henderson gently reminded them both, "You were saved, Emma. Your mother trusted her instinct and saved you, and you were brave to hold on until she could act." Slowly, very slowly, Emma began to improve. Nightmares have become less frequent. The smile returned, little by little, shy at first, then more genuine. She went back to playing with her friends at recess. He returned to participate in classes. She went back to being the cheerful girl she had been before Michael Harrison came into her life. The recovery was not linear. There were bad days, days when Emma woke up sad for no apparent reason, days when she refused to leave her room. But he also had good days, more and more frequent. News of the case reached the local media, reports in Portland newspapers, segments on TV news, music teacher arrested after mother installs hidden camera. Rebecca was contacted by reporters asking for interviews. She refused them all. I didn't want to expose Emma. He did not want his daughter's identity to be publicly known, but he agreed to give an anonymous interview to a local radio program with a distorted voice and without mentioning names. She spoke about the importance of trusting in the maternal instinct, about how she had felt that something was wrong, even when everyone said she was exaggerating, about how the signs were there, small but constant, and how she had learned to pay attention to them. "If something feels wrong, it's probably wrong," she said on the radio. "Don't let anyone convince you otherwise. It doesn't matter how respected the person is. It doesn't matter how many degrees she has. If your child is changing his behavior, if he is sad or scared, if he is trying to tell you something, believe it. Always believe." The interview had repercussions. Rebecca received messages from other mothers, some sharing similar stories, others thanking her for speaking up, others saying that the story made them pay more attention to their own children. A woman wrote, "My son was taking swimming lessons and started making excuses not to go. After listening to his interview, I had a serious conversation with him. I found out that the coach humiliated the boys when they made mistakes. I cancelled the classes immediately. Thank you for making me pay attention. If you're here, it's because this story deserves to be heard. I believe that what comes next will surprise you even more. Don't leave this video before you find out how it all ended." 4 hours after Detective Ramirez's initial call informing her that Michael Harrison was in custody, Rebecca received another update. He had been formally charged and was being held in the Multnomah County Jail. The bail hearing would be the next day. The prosecution was going to argue that he posed a flight risk and danger to children, requesting that bail not be granted. Rebecca did not attend the hearing. I didn't want to see his face. I didn't want to risk that Emma, who was in her grandmother's care, would see something related to the case on television or in the newspapers. But Detective Ramirez called the news later. "Bail denied. He is imprisoned until the trial." The judge considered that the evidence was strong and that he posed a risk. Rebecca felt a deep relief hearing this. But the case was just beginning. In the following days, more details came to light. Detective Chen, who was leading the forensic analysis of Michael Harrison's computers, discovered that the videos he had kept were not just from classes. He had edited a few, creating compilations of the children crying, the children in uncomfortable positions. It was disturbing on a level that Rebecca couldn't even fully process. That man wasn't just abusing children. He was documenting, collecting, maybe even satisfying himself with their suffering later. The 12 families identified were contacted one by one. Some were already suspicious, like Rebecca. Others were completely shocked. One mother, Patricia, went into complete denial initially. "No, it can't be. My son loved the classes. He never complained." But when the police showed the videos, when she saw it with her own eyes, the denial turned to horror and then to devastating anger. How did I not see it? How did I let this happen to my son? The children were of varying ages. The youngest was only 7 years old when she started classes. The eldest was 12, girls and boys, although most were girls, all from families that seemed normal, functional, loving, but all with some vulnerability factor that Michael Harrison had identified and exploited. Mothers who worked a lot, absent parents, single-parent families, children with low self-esteem that he could manipulate more easily. The pattern was always the same. Normal first classes to gain confidence. Then gradual climbing. It began with severe criticism. It evolved into screams, then to humiliations, then for inappropriate touches disguised as correction, and always psychological manipulation. "You are special. That's why I'm you. This is our secret. No one will believe you if you tell them. Your mother will be mad. You're going to get me in trouble." Real teachers are like that. Rebecca talked to several of the other mothers. They all had similar stories. They had all seen signs and ignored them. They all carried guilt, but they were also determined to help their children recover and to make sure Michael Harrison paid for what he did. They organized themselves not only as a support group, but as a force. They hired a lawyer collectively to represent the interests of the victims in the criminal proceedings. They began a campaign to change state laws on background checks for private tutors. Jennifer, who had become close friends with Rebecca through this shared ordeal, proposed something at one of the meetings. "We should create an organization, something that helps other families recognize signs of abuse, that educates parents on what to look for, that offers resources for children who go through this." The group agreed. Over the next few months, as the criminal case against Michael Harrison slowly moved through the court system, the mothers worked together to create Portland Families Against Child Abuse, a non-profit focused on education, prevention, and support. Rebecca became one of the spokespersons. She didn't use her full name publicly to protect Emma, only Rebecca T., but she spoke at community events, in schools, in parents' groups. He talked about his experience, about the signs he had seen, about the importance of trusting instinct, about how predators seem like normal, reliable, respected people, about how reputation is no guarantee of character. And people listened. In some lectures, other mothers approached later, in tears, sharing their own stories. "My son had a coach who, my daughter had a teacher who, it happened to my niece." The problem was bigger than Rebecca had imagined. It was not an isolated case. It was standard. Adults in positions of authority abusing the trust placed in them, and families, well-meaning and loving, not knowing how to protect their children because they didn't know what to look for. Michael Harrison's trial was scheduled for March, 6 months after his arrest. As the date approached, Rebecca felt her anxiety increase. Emma would have to testify. All 12 children would have it. The prosecution, led by Assistant District Attorney Karen Stewart, a firm and determined woman in her mid-50s, prepared the children and families for what to expect. He's going to be there in the room. There will be a jury. There will be difficult questions. But you will be protected, and we will fight for you. Rebecca spent weeks preparing Emma. They talked about what was going to happen, about how Emma would have to tell what she experienced to strange people, about how the teacher's lawyer was going to try to make it look like it hadn't been so bad. But Dr. Henderson, Emma's psychologist, worked with her in parallel, giving her tools to deal with anxiety, breathing techniques, ways to stay calm and focused. A week before the trial, Prosecutor Stewart called. "Rebecca, I need to tell you something. Michael Harrison's lawyer came to us. He wants to make a deal." Rebecca felt her stomach turn. "What kind of agreement?" He pleads guilty to all charges in exchange for a specific sentence, 18 years without the possibility of parole for the first 12. Stewart paused. It's a good offer. It guarantees conviction without putting children through the trauma of testifying. Rebecca didn't know what to think. For one thing, Emma wouldn't have to relive everything in a courtroom. I wouldn't have to see Michael Harrison. She would not have to be cross-examined by defense attorneys trying to discredit her story. On the other hand, 18 years seemed little. The man had destroyed the lives of 12 children. It had caused trauma that would take years to heal, if it would heal at all. He deserved more, but Stewart explained, if we go to trial, there is always risk. A jury can be unpredictable. An agreement guarantees that he will be arrested. He guarantees that he will never have access to children again. Rebecca talked to the other mothers. All had divided opinions. Some wanted to see him face the full trial, wanted the whole story to be told publicly, wanted the satisfaction of seeing him convicted by a jury. Others wanted to spare their children the trauma of witnessing. After much debate, they voted. 7 of the 12 families were in favor of the agreement, 5 against. Prosecutor Stewart respected the majority's decision and accepted the plea agreement. Michael Harrison pleaded guilty to all charges at a hearing in mid-March. Rebecca went. He sat in the second row of the courtroom, with Emma next to him and Margaret on the other. The courtroom was exactly as she had seen in movies. Dark wood, hard benches, the American flag behind the judge's bench. Michael Harrison was brought in handcuffed, wearing orange prison uniform. It looked smaller than Rebecca remembered, older, more fragile. But he still had those eyes, and when he looked briefly in the direction of the victims' families, Rebecca saw the same coldness she had seen that day on the door of her house. The judge, the Honorable Thomas Chen, read the charges one by one. Emotional abuse of a minor, psychological abuse of a minor, improper conduct with a minor, 12 counts of each. How does the defendant declare himself? Michael Harrison's lawyer, a man in a grey suit with a tired expression, responded, "Guilty, Your Honor, on all counts." The court was silent for a moment, so the judge accepted the statement and scheduled the sentencing hearing for 3 weeks later. The families left the courtroom with mixed feelings. There was relief from the confession, but there was also anger because he didn't have to face full trial. There was satisfaction because I was arrested. But there was also sadness because no sentence could undo the damage done. The sentencing hearing was 3 weeks later on a cold April morning. This time, all the families were present. 12 mothers, some fathers, grandparents, older brothers. They filled 3 rows of the court. Judge Chen gave opportunity for victims' impact statements. 5 of the 12 children chose to speak. Emma was one of them. Rebecca held her daughter's hand as they walked to the podium. Emma, now 10, seemed small and brave at the same time. I had prepared a statement with the help of Dr. Henderson. He read in a trembling voice at first, but growing firmer as he went on. Mr. Michael made me afraid of making mistakes. It made me think I was stupid and that I would never be good at anything. It made me have nightmares for months, but my mother believed in me, and now I know that nothing you said was true. I'm not stupid. I am strong, and you can't hurt anyone anymore. Every child who spoke said something similar. They talked about fear, about nightmares, about how they had been manipulated into believing they were guilty, about how they were recovering, about how they were stronger now. Michael Harrison sat with his head down during all the statements. He didn't look at any of the children. He showed no visible emotion. When all the statements were over, Judge Chen turned to Michael Harrison. "Do you have anything to say before the sentence?" The defense attorney whispered to him. After a moment, Michael Harrison stood up. "I'm sorry," I said in a low voice. "He was wrong. I need help." The judge stared at him expressionlessly. "You have spent years abusing the trust you have placed. He used his position of authority to terrorize children, and he only expresses regret now that he has been caught and faces consequences. His apology is insufficient and insincere. Judge Chen pronounced the sentence. 18 years in prison on each count to be served concurrently. No possibility of parole for the first 12 years. Upon release, if any, lifetime registration as a sex offender, permanent ban on unsupervised contact with minors, restriction of proximity to schools and parks. Michael Harrison would officially be an outcast from society when, if anything, he got out of prison. The families left the courtroom with feelings of mixed victory. 18 years was something. 12 years without parole guaranteed that he would be away for a long time. But no sentence would bring back the stolen innocence. No amount of time in prison would erase the nightmares, the trauma, the years of therapy that children would need. Still, it was justice. It was a consequence. It was protection for future children. Outside the courthouse, journalists waited. Cameras, microphones shouted questions. How do you feel about the sentence? Do you think it was enough? What do they want to say to other families? Rebecca, who had arranged to be the spokesperson for the families, stopped and spoke. We are relieved that Michael Harrison will never be able to hurt a child again, but we want other families to learn from our experience. Pay attention to your children. Believe them when they try to tell you something. Trust your instinct. And remember, predators don't look like monsters. They seem to be respected and trustworthy people. That's how they get access. The report aired that night on all local Portland channels. In the following days, Rebecca received dozens of messages. Other mums sharing stories. Teachers and coaches thanking you for bringing attention to the problem. Child protection organizations asking Rebecca to speak at events. Rebecca and Emma's story, although it began as a private nightmare, was turning into a catalyst for change. This story is not for everyone. If you are here, it is because you want to know the truth behind the facts. Are you ready for the final reveal? Life has slowly returned to a new normal for Rebecca and Emma, a different normality from what they had before, but normality nonetheless. Emma continued in therapy, now only once a week instead of twice. Nightmares had become rare, perhaps once a month instead of every week. She started to smile genuinely again, to play with friends, to be interested in activities. He tried ballet for a few months. He tried football. She never wanted to play the piano again, and Rebecca completely respected that decision. Rebecca also went to therapy. He needed to process the guilt he felt for not having acted sooner. She needed to work on the constant fear she had developed, the hypervigilance that made her distrust every adult who interacted with Emma. The therapist, Dr. Susan Grant, helped Rebecca understand that guilt was natural, but not productive. You acted as soon as you were sure. You saved your daughter. You did more than many mothers do. Focus on that, not the time it took to get there. The support group of the 12 families continued to meet monthly, even after the trial. They became something of an extended family, united by shared trauma and the journey of recovery. The children formed friendships. They understood each other in a way that other children didn't. They had a shared vocabulary of experiences that they didn't need to explain. The organization they created, Portland Families Against Child Abuse, has grown beyond initial expectations. They got funding through donations. They hired an executive director. They created a website with resources for parents, guides on warning signs, checklists to evaluate teachers and private coaches. They began offering free workshops in schools and community centers. Rebecca became a frequent speaker. He told his story over and over again, each time getting a little easier, each time reaching new ears. Some lectures were small, just 10 or 15 parents at a local library. Others were large, auditoriums filled with hundreds of people. But the impact was always the same. People approached later, with tears in their eyes, saying that this story had changed something in them, that they were going to pay more attention, that they would trust instinct more. A year after the trial, Rebecca received an unexpected email. It belonged to a woman named Angela Rodriguez, who lived in Eugene, Oregon, 2 hours south of Portland. He wrote to say that he had attended one of Rebecca's lectures online and that it had saved his daughter. She had noticed signs similar to the ones Rebecca described: behavior changing, resistance to go to activities he once loved, nightmares. And instead of ignoring how she was going to do it, Angela investigated. She discovered that her daughter's art teacher was making inappropriate comments, creating an emotionally abusive environment. She took her daughter out of class, denounced the teacher, saved her daughter from months or years of trauma, and all because he had heard Rebecca's story. Messages like this arrived periodically. Each one left Rebecca in tears. Each validated the hard work they were doing. Each one meant that Emma's suffering had not been in vain. It was serving to protect other children. I was turning pain into purpose. Emma, seeing the work her mother did, began to understand that her experience had meaning beyond personal pain. In a therapy session at the age of 11, Emma told Dr. Henderson, "I'm sad about what happened to me, but I'm glad we're helping other kids not to go through the same." Dr. Henderson smiled. "This is called turning trauma into meaning, Emma. It's one of the most powerful ways to heal." Emma's school was extremely supportive throughout the process. The principal, Ms. Patterson, implemented new training for teachers on recognizing signs of abuse. It created a more robust protocol for vetting volunteers and substitute teachers. Brought Rebecca to speak to faculty about her experience. The school has become a model in the region for child protection policies. Emma's friends were also important in her recovery. At first, Emma hadn't told anyone at school what happened, but eventually, as he got stronger and more comfortable talking about it, he told his two best friends, Sophia and Mia. The girls, with the simple wisdom of childhood, answered exactly as Emma needed. "That was horrible and unfair, but you are brave, and she is still our friend." And then they went back to playing, because children know that sometimes the best way to help is simply to remain friends. 2 years after the trial, Rebecca received unexpected news. Detective Ramirez called. "I wanted to update you on Michael Harrison. He's having a hard time in prison. Inmates who have hurt children are not treated well by other inmates. He was placed in protective custody twice." Rebecca felt no pity. He felt a cold satisfaction. "Good. He deserves everything he is going through and more." The detective continued. "I also wanted to tell you that his case had broader effects. The state of Oregon has passed new laws requiring stricter background checks for private tutors, and several other jurisdictions are considering similar legislation. You and the other families made a real difference." Rebecca felt tears of pride and pain, mixed. We did what we had to do, what any mother would do. But Rebecca knew it wasn't true. Not every mother would have trusted instinct. Not every mother would have persisted when everyone said she was exaggerating. Not every mother would have had the courage to put a hidden camera, to go to the police, to fight for what was right. Rebecca had done it all. And now thousands of children were safer because of the laws that their courage had helped create. Emma has grown up. At the age of 12, she was a resilient, intelligent girl with dreams for the future. "I wanted to be a psychologist when I grew up. I want to help children who have been through bad things," she said one day. "How Dr. Henderson helped me." Rebecca hugged her daughter, pride overflowing. "You're going to be amazing at this, my love, because you understand. You lived. You know that it is possible to survive and grow stronger." The other children were also recovering at their own pace and in their own ways. Sophie, Jennifer's daughter, found healing in writing, keeping a diary that her mother said was surprisingly mature and eloquent. Joshua, who had been one of the youngest victims, found comfort in sports, especially swimming, where a patient and kind coach showed that authority figures could be trusted. Sarah even returned to playing the piano, but with a female teacher in a glass-walled studio, proving that trauma didn't have to steal what she loved. The mothers remained friends. Jennifer and Rebecca in particular developed a deep friendship. They had coffee together weekly, not just talking about the case or child protection, but about life, about work, relationships, challenges of raising preteen daughters, about normal things. Because they couldn't let that event define their lives completely, they also needed to be just women living, laughing, complaining about everyday things. 3 years after the sentence, Rebecca woke up one morning and realized something surprising. I had spent a whole day without thinking about Michael Harrison, without feeling that tightness in my chest, without compulsively checking where Emma was. It had just been a normal, quiet, happy day. And realizing this, Rebecca felt a lightness that she hadn't felt in years. Healing did not mean forgetting. It meant that the pain no longer controlled every moment. Emma also had healing milestones. When he managed to spend a whole night at a sleepover at Sophia's house without having a nightmare. When she raised her hand in class to ask a question without fear of being wrong. When he laughed, a loud and genuine laugh, watching a silly movie with his mother. Each of these moments was a victory against trauma, a claim for normality and joy. Before we continue, help bring real stories to those who really care. If you want to be part of this mission, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and activate the bell. The organization Portland Families Against Child Abuse expanded. 3 years after it was founded, it had chapters in 5 Oregon cities and was beginning to spread to neighboring states. Rebecca was no longer the only speaker. Other mothers from the original group also spoke, and new volunteers, people who had their own stories of survival, joined the cause. They set up a helpline. Parents could call anonymously to talk about suspicions, get guidance, be directed to local resources. The line received an average of 50 calls per week. Some were false alarms, worried parents, but for no real reason. But others were genuine situations of abuse being discovered. And every child saved by that line was another victory. The organization has also begun working with schools to implement educational programs for children. They taught about appropriate versus inappropriate touch, about how no one, not even adults in positions of authority, has the right to make you feel uncomfortable, about how secrets that make you sad or scared are not secrets you should keep, about how your parents will always believe you if you tell the truth. Emma, now 12, sometimes attended these workshops, telling her story in an age-appropriate way. The impact was spreading in waves. One protected family told another. A trained teacher changed policies in the school. A law passed in Oregon inspired legislation in other states. What had started as a mother and daughter's nightmare was turning into a child protection movement. Rebecca would sometimes stop and think about how life had changed. 4 years ago, it was just a working nurse trying to raise her daughter on her own. Now she was a well-known activist, speaker, founder of an organization. He had given interviews to national newspapers. He had testified before the state legislature about proposed laws. It had made a measurable difference in the lives of hundreds, perhaps thousands of children. But what mattered most was not public recognition. It was to see Emma happy. It was knowing that he had protected his daughter when it mattered most. One Saturday afternoon, 4 years after that fateful hidden camera class, Rebecca and Emma were in the kitchen baking cookies together. Flour on Emma's face, music playing on the radio. Laughter as they tried not to eat all the raw pasta. It was a simple, ordinary, perfect moment. Emma, stirring the dough, said without looking at her mother, "Thank you for believing in me, Mom, even when I couldn't say the right words." Rebecca felt immediate tears. He put down the spoon and pulled Emma into a hug. "I will always believe in you, my love. Always. And I will always protect you." Emma hugged back. "I know. That's why I survived. That's why I'm fine now." The two of them stood there hugging for a long moment, flour and all, crying and laughing at the same time, because healing is not linear, and sometimes you need to cry for old wounds while celebrating new achievements. That night, after Emma had slept, Rebecca sat on the back porch with a cup of tea. The sky was starry, rare in Portland with all the light pollution. But that night, you could see some stars twinkling. Rebecca thought about the entire path she had traveled, on sleepless nights. In fears, in doubt, in the courage she had to find within herself, in the fight he fought, in the victory he won. And he thought of Michael Harrison, in a prison cell miles away. He had 8 more years ahead of him before he could even apply for parole. And when he left, if he left, he would be a marked man. Registration of a sexual offender, lifetime restrictions, reputation destroyed. Everything he had built for decades, all that mask of respectability, was in ruins. And Rebecca felt no pity. He felt that justice had been done. Not perfect, justice never is, but done. The phone rang, breaking her thoughts. It was Jennifer, just calling to see how you were doing. Rebecca smiled. I am fine. We are fine. How is Sophie? Great. She has just been accepted into the school's volleyball team. She is very excited. The two talked for half an hour, about daughters, about life, about plans for the organization's next workshop. It was a conversation of friends, but also of warriors who had fought together and won. 5 years have passed since that day Rebecca installed the hidden camera in Emma's backpack. 5 years that completely transformed their lives, but not in the way that no one would have imagined. The recovery journey was long, tortuous, full of difficult days and small victories that seemed monumental. Emma, now 14, was a young teenager who carried invisible scars, but also a strength that few people her age possessed. Therapy with Dr. Henderson continued for a full 4 years, twice a week at first, then once, then fortnightly, until they finally got to the point where Emma no longer needed the regular sessions. In the last official session, Dr. Henderson hugged Emma and said something that was recorded forever. You came here as a scared girl trying to understand why bad things happen. She is leaving here as a young woman who knows that bad things happen, but also knows that we have the power to overcome them and help others. I'm so proud of you. Emma became interested in music again, but in a completely different way. Not piano, it still brought back uncomfortable memories, but guitar. She began classes with a female teacher named Ms. Rodriguez, who taught group lessons in a glass-walled musical instrument store where everything was visible. Emma discovered that she loved to sing. He had a soft, melodious voice that Rebecca didn't know existed because her daughter had stopped singing during those dark months and was just now rediscovering that part of herself. At school, Emma became a silent advocate for other children. When she saw someone being bullied or feeling alone, she would come closer. He offered friendship. He listened. She had a unique ability to notice when something was wrong, perhaps because she had lived so long hiding her own pain. One afternoon, the school counselor called Rebecca. I wanted to let you know that Emma helped a classmate today. The girl was being pressured by a trainer inappropriately, and Emma encouraged her to tell her parents. The situation was resolved because of Emma's courage. Rebecca felt tears of pride and pain hearing this. Her daughter, who had suffered so much, was using that experience to protect others. He was a legacy of the most powerful kind, the transformation of trauma into purpose. Just as Dr. Henderson had said years ago, Emma wasn't just surviving. He was thriving in a way that changed the world around him. The support group of 12 families still met, but now only quarterly. It was no longer about processing trauma. It was about celebrating growth, about sharing successes, about maintaining the connection that had been forged in dire circumstances, but had turned into something genuine and lasting. The children, now teenagers, had a unique bond. They understood each other in ways that no one else did. Jennifer's daughter, Sophie, was writing a memoir about her experience with the help of a therapist and a professional writer. I want other children to know that they are not alone, she said. I want you to understand that talking is strong, not weak. Joshua, who had been one of the youngest victims, was now 12 years old and a competitive swimmer. channeling all that pain into physical determination. Sarah returned not only to playing the piano, but was lending to music conservatories, refusing to let Michael Harrison steal what she loved. Rebecca continued her work with Portland Families Against Child Abuse, which had grown exponentially. The organization now operated in 12 states, had 23 full-time employees, and had helped pass child protection legislation in 7 different states. They had a helpline that was open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They had developed educational curricula used in hundreds of schools. They had trained thousands of teachers, trainers, community leaders on recognizing signs of abuse. The impact was measurable. In Portland specifically, reports of child abuse by authority figures had increased by 40% in the 5 years since the Michael Harrison case. That didn't mean there was more abuse. It meant that more people were recognizing, reporting, acting. It meant fewer children were suffering in silence. Each statistic represented a child saved, a family protected, a predator prevented. Rebecca had become a nationally recognized voice in child protection. He had given a talk at a TED conference. He'd written articles for important publications. She'd been interviewed on national news programs, but what mattered most were not the big platforms. It was the daily emails from mothers saying that Rebecca's story had saved their children. It was the testimonies of adult survivors saying that they wished someone like Rebecca had existed when they were children. It was the real, tangible changes that were taking place. Michael Harrison completed 5 years in prison. He still had 13 to go before he could even apply for parole. Rebecca received occasional updates through Detective Ramirez, who had become friends over the years. He was isolated most of the time for his own safety. Inmates who have injured children were constant targets. He had tried to appeal the sentence twice, both denied. He was going to die in prison or leave as a very old man and completely destroyed. It was imperfect justice, but it was justice. Emma, on her 14th birthday, made a surprising request. "Mom, I want to make a video telling my story to put on the organization's website." Rebecca hesitated. "Are you sure, dear? Once it's there, you can't go back." Emma nodded firmly. "I'm ready. I want other children to see that it is possible to survive, that you can be well again. And I want predators to know that we're not scared anymore." They recorded the video on a Saturday afternoon. Emma sitting in a comfortable chair, Rebecca out of frame but close. Emma spoke for 15 minutes. He told about the classes, about fear, about how she had tried to tell but couldn't find the words, about how her mother had believed and saved her, about the long and difficult recovery, and about how now, 5 years later, he was fine. Not perfectly. There were still bad days. But he was fine, he was strong, he was using his voice. The video was posted and went viral. 500,000 views in the first week, millions eventually. Comments from people crying, sharing their own stories, thanking them for their courage. Emma read some of the comments and cried, but they were good tears. Tears of knowing that her pain had purpose, that it was making a difference. Rebecca looked at her daughter and saw a miracle. He saw the girl who had been broken but had reassembled, stronger in the broken joints like Japanese kintsugi pottery, where the cracks are filled with gold. Emma was a work of art of resilience. It was a testament that love, support, therapy, and time could heal even the deepest wounds. Not completely, because some scars stay forever, but to heal enough to live fully, to love deeply, to hope brilliantly. Rebecca and Emma's story has become a case study in psychology, social work, and education programs. Universities used it as an example of how appropriate maternal intervention can save children. As an instinct, when trusted, it can be powerful. How courage a person can create waves that change entire systems. It wasn't the way Rebecca had imagined life would be when Emma was born 14 years ago. But it was significant. It was important. And on the best of days, she was even beautiful in a strange and painful way. The lessons learned were simple but profound. Trust instinct. Believe in your children. Don't let reputation or position of authority intimidate you into ignoring signs. Persistence saves lives, courage inspires change, and mothers, when united in purpose, are an unstoppable force. These truths, bought with so much suffering, were now protecting countless children. And they would continue to protect for generations, because real change, once initiated, creates momentum of its own. Rebecca Thompson was no longer just a nurse and a single mother trying to make ends meet. He was an activist. She was an orator. She was an author, having published a book about her experience. She was the founder of an organization that changed laws. But more importantly, she was a mother who had protected her daughter when it mattered most. And Emma was no longer just a frightened victim. He was a survivor. She was a defender. She was a young woman with a voice and the courage to use it. Together, they had turned a nightmare into a mission, and that mission would continue to save children for years to come, long after the original wounds had healed completely. The story of Rebecca and Emma teaches us lessons that every mother should engrave in her heart. The maternal instinct is not paranoia, it is protection. That discomfort in the chest, that feeling that something is wrong even when no one else sees it, exists for a reason. Rebecca could have ignored the signs. I could have believed that I was exaggerating, as everyone said. But she chose to trust that tightness in her stomach that wouldn't leave her alone. And that choice saved his daughter. Predators don't have the face of a monster. They have diplomas on the wall, recommendations from families, kind smiles, and impeccable reputations. Michael Harrison taught music for 15 years. No one suspected it, but he chose to use his position of trust to silently and devastatingly hurt children. And he was counting on one thing, that no one would question such a respected man. But Rebecca questioned it. A mother's courage changed everything. 12 families discovered the truth. 12 children began to heal. And who knows how many others were spared because that man was taken out of circulation. That's the power of not being silent, of not ignoring that inner voice that screams danger even when no one else hears. If you are a mother, pay attention to the signs. A child who cries before going to an activity he once loved. Children who are too quiet, who have nightmares, who change their behavior. A child who mentions secrets with adults, who talks about special things he can't tell. These are not small details. They are calls for help disguised as normal behavior. Emma tried to speak in all the ways a 9-year-old child knows. Rebecca listened not with her ears, but with a mother's heart. And when your daughter finally manages to speak, believe it. Always believe. Children don't invent this kind of thing. They are afraid to speak out because predators are masters at making them think that no one will believe them. Break that cycle. Be the mother who believes first and investigates later. It doesn't matter who the person is. It doesn't matter what position they hold. It doesn't matter how many years they have been respected. Your child's safety comes before any reputation. Rebecca now sleeps peacefully, knowing that she protected her daughter. Emma is healed, surrounded by love and support, and together they proved that mothers are not born to be naive. They are born to be warriors, to protect their children even when the whole world says everything is fine. Because sometimes everything is wrong, and only a mother has the courage to see the truth hidden behind smiles and reputations. If this story touched your heart, share it with other mums. Leave your comment telling us what you think. Subscribe to the channel to see more stories that can change lives, and activate the bell so you don't miss any videos. Don't leave now. Take the next step in this journey by watching the next video on our channel, which will appear here on the screen. In it, we will continue to discover stories that touch the heart and transform perspectives. A big hug and see you in the next exciting story.